Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side. An 18-year-old college student comes home for spring break and then vanishes. The college freshman's disappearance prompted an extensive search that ended 5 weeks later when investigators found her body in an abandoned property. What happened? Let's get into the case of A.J. Hadsell right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide. This is your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of heartbreak that turn to murder. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kai, and I'll be your host. Take a seat, take a listen all the way to the end, and if you like it, don't forget to subscribe. And also, don't forget to leave a review. I know I never say that anymore. If you like it, don't forget to leave a review on whatever platform you're on. 5 stars would be very much appreciated. If you're a returning lamb, thank you so much for your continued support. Also, don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast on our Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. You can subscribe for free where you still get some benefits while you get to know me and Love and Murder. And then if you ever decide to become a sponsor of Lamb, you could choose from the tier options there based on the bonuses that you would like. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. Now that we got the housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and grab our butts, grab our delicious glass of apple juice, and you already know where I get my apple juice from, BJ's. If you want to save yourself some money, especially in this climate of rising grocery costs, then head on over to murderandlove.com/BJ's. By using that link, you do save money on your first year's membership. You'll get it for only $20 for the first year as of this recording. murderandlove.com/BJ's. And now let's get into the case of A.J. Hadsell. Angelica Hadsell, who everyone called AJ, was born on August 9th, 1996 in Chesapeake, Virginia. She was born to her mother, Jennifer Wright, but nothing was really said about her father. She was later adopted by Wesley Hadsell, who was married to her mother at the time. He worked for an HVAC company in Norfolk, Virginia. She grew up with her parents and her 2 stepsisters, Justice and Gracie Hoffer. AJ was a freshman at Longwood University in Virginia, where she double majored in information technology and computer programming. She was also active in sports, playing on the softball and field hockey teams. Friends and family described her as a vibrant and ambitious young woman who loved spending her free time volunteering for various charities and spending time with her family and friends. Quote, AJ was fiercely independent. She wanted to help people and had big plans for her life. AJ suffered from migraine headaches, and her neurologist had prescribed a daily medication for her to take. I'm going to try and say this medication now. It's nortriptyline hydrochloride. I think that's how you say it, but that's for migraines. On Friday, February 27th, 2015, AJ's mother and siblings had picked her up from college to stay at home during spring break. That weekend, AJ had gone shopping with her family and one of her friends, Andre Barr. She also had an appointment to see an orthopedist to treat a knee injury that she'd had, and this appointment was for Tuesday, March 3rd. And then she planned to go to the gym with Justice afterwards. AJ also planned to see her boyfriend, Joshua Campbell, on Wednesday, March 4th. On March 2nd, AJ had stayed home while her family left for work and school. Justice had made plans to go get smoothies with her after school that day. And AJ left the house around 7 a.m. to reportedly visit a friend. A neighbor had actually watched her leave the house in the car, which nosy neighbors can sometimes come in handy. At 2:30 p.m. on that same day, Justice returned home from school and noticed that the front door was unlocked and her dog was outside. AJ's wallet was on the couch in the living room beside a basket that had partially folded laundry within it. AJ's Bluetooth speaker was also turned on. Justice searched the house and searched AJ's bedroom and learned that some of AJ's stuff was missing, including some clothes and a pair of black Vans shoes. AJ's cell phone was also gone, but her winter coat was still at the house, even though this time of year was cold outside. Justice also found a pink sticky note on the kitchen table which read, quote, "Dear Madre, with everything going on, it's a lot to deal with." And this letter was both weird and in AJ's handwriting. So Justice told her family what was going on, and everybody started calling AJ, but she never picked up the phone. Finally, sometime in the evening, the family received a text message from AJ saying that she was, quote, "out with friends and needed time." So they thought that she was taking some personal time. However, when she never came back home, called or answered calls or texts, the family started to get really worried, especially the next day when AJ still didn't come home. So Jennifer called the Norfolk police to report her daughter missing. When police questioned them, Wesley told police that he had last seen AJ around noon on March 2nd, saying that he'd met her at a gas station and given her $100. Now, who is this Wesley Hadsell who had married Jennifer and adopted AJ? Wesley married Jennifer in 2010, becoming AJ's stepfather. The relationship between Wesley and his stepdaughter appeared normal on the surface, but there were tensions in the home. By early 2015, Jennifer had put Wesley out because she'd found out about his drug use, cocaine, and it had been getting worse. So, as of this time, Wesley was staying at various hotels. Wesley admitted to relatives and a coworker that his cocaine use had caused family, quote, issues, although he maintained that he, quote, would never touch heroin because that drug had, quote, killed his friend. At another point in time, AJ told Joshua that she was upset that Wesley had prioritized his addiction over his family. In the months leading up to AJ's disappearance, Wesley frequently visited the Norfolk area, even though he was separated from Jennifer. His movements had become increasingly erratic, including unexplained absences from work. Now, back to March 3rd, after the police spoke with the family. Wesley arrived at the house around lunchtime and spoke with detectives. One officer noticed that Wesley was, quote, extremely tired, disheveled, and his clothes were dirty, and he appeared, quote, kind of twitchy. Basically, he thought that Wesley was under the influence of, quote, cocaine or another narcotic. Initially, Wesley told detectives that he had last seen AJ around 7 a.m. on March 2nd when he dropped his truck off at her house. But then he changed his story and said he didn't see AJ until lunchtime, like I told you before, when he met her at the one-stop gas station near his workplace and, quote, gave her $100. Detective David LaFleur later got a still photograph from the surveillance video from the one-stop gas station and had Wesley circle the precise location where he claimed to have met AJ. Wesley also told Detective LaFleur that AJ's house had an alarm system that sent a notification to his cell phone whenever a door was open. He said that around 1:30 p.m. on March 2nd, he'd received an alarm notification and assumed that AJ had returned home from the gas station. However, when detectives asked to see this notification, he refused to show them and said he couldn't do it because the phone had, quote, factory reset itself. Now, I ask you, Lamb, when in the history of cell phones have you ever heard a cell phone that just randomly and conveniently factory reset itself? Wesley also claimed that he had canceled the alarm service around March 2nd. More and more convenient. Wesley then told detectives that he was conducting his own, quote, investigation and had asked, quote, people to, quote, look for stuff. I mean, sounds investigating to me, right? He said that he had broken into his nephew's house to search for AJ, but didn't find her. Like, first of all, why are you breaking into people's houses? Second of all, why are you telling police that you broke into someone's house? And third of all, why your nephew? What made you think it was your nephew? He then refused to provide further details regarding his, quote, investigation, although he said that police, quote, would find out what he did to someone else. What? I guess that was like foreshadowing for his nephew or something? I don't know. He then repeatedly told police that he suspected AJ's ex-boyfriend. Okay, so first you suspected your nephew, now her ex-boyfriend, like, So anyways, he suspected her ex-boyfriend, Corey French, of doing something. He also told AJ's friends, including Joshua and Andre, to, quote, keep an eye on Corey. After this, friends, family, and community members organized search groups, distributing flyers and organizing search parties. On March 5th, 2015, while walking to work on his regular route along Halprin Drive, Corey found a piece of a debit card that had AJ's name on it. He called police, and Norfolk Police Detective Brandon Shum arrived at the scene. Then both of them searched the area for any additional pieces of the debit card, but found none. This is getting weird. Later that day, Joshua visited Corey's home where he lived with his mother. While Corey was taking a shower, and unbeknownst to him, Joshua searched his house to see if any of AJ's stuff was there, but he didn't find anything. Later that evening, Wesley called Joshua and asked him about the layout of Corey's home and if it had an alarm system in it. And to me, I'd be like, why are you asking this? Well, I guess he answered it in the next sentence because he asked this because he said that he was at Corey's house and was, quote, possibly going to go inside. Why are you just breaking into people's homes, sir? May I see your badge? May I see your years on the service that turned you into an investigator? After this incident, Wesley led several of the searches, including one on March 6th when he gathered AJ's friends to look for more pieces of her debit card, which, don't you think the police was doing that? No? Okay. They went out to the same location that Corey and Detective Shum had already searched. This time, they found 3 more pieces of the debit card. They called Detective Shum, and this time when he came out, Wesley told him that Corey was, quote, obsessed with AJ and that the police needed to investigate him. Later that afternoon, Wesley and his neighbor, who was an off-duty Norfolk police officer, Paul Lopez, met Andre at AJ's house. Wesley told them that he had broken into Corey's house and found AJ's longwood jacket underneath a couch cushion. So he just keeps telling police that he's breaking into homes and nobody's arresting him? He said that he needed Andre to confirm that the jacket was there so that it would be admissible in court. So Andre went with 2 of his friends to Corey's house and found AJ's jacket right where Wesley said it would be. So Andre then told police that he found AJ's jacket in Corey's house, but he didn't tell them about Wesley's involvement in all of this. But then later on, Wesley told retired off-duty officer Paul Lopez about it. And, also what's funny to me? The police can't find anything, nothing, all the years on the force, they're not finding anything. And then AJ's friends and family can't find anything either, even though this is their loved one and they're searching with all their heart. They can't find anything either. But 00 Wesley over here finds everything. So why aren't you an investigator yet? I'm just wondering, why didn't you go to the force and become an investigator in under 6 months, where you became the youngest investigator ever on the Norfolk force? On the night of March 6th, police searched Corey's house and seized AJ's jacket that was underneath the couch cushion. Police took Corey in and questioned him, and Corey willingly gave him his phone to police, gave a DNA sample, submitted a polygraph test, and was like, look, I will give you anything you want. I have literally nothing to hide. He also told police that he didn't even own a car and relied on others for transportation. He said he didn't do anything to AJ and would help police in any way that they needed him to. On March 8th, Andre and one of AJ's cousins visited Wesley in his hotel room. Wesley showed them a bag that had 2 guns inside. He also placed ammo inside a vent in his room. He then told the 2 men that he was a member of, quote, the Aryan Brotherhood, and told Andre, if you don't believe me, search my name online? Why? Because the Aryan Brotherhood has an online roster? What? God. Anyway, when Corey searched his name, he found that Wesley had been previously charged with kidnapping and robbery. Did you find that he was a member of the Aryan Brotherhood? Because, they just have their roster sitting online. Anyways, when he found that out, that's when Wesley told them that he, quote, had a whole plan to get rid of Corey French, judge, jury, and executioner, and that he had told his friend, Marilyn Wells, quote, to rent a truck for him using cash so he would have a getaway car. He also told Andre that a, quote, body of water would be the perfect plan to dump a body because, quote, it would get rid of all the evidence. Actually, that wasn't all that was in Wesley's background. His background history included multiple convictions across different states. He had breaking and entering charges in Ohio, a felony bank robbery conviction in 1998, multiple probation violations, and illegal possession of ammunition charges. On March 12th, Wesley visited one of AJ's neighbors, Teresa Thomas, to ask if they knew anything about AJ's missing phone. Now, why TF would they know anything about AJ's phone? This dude is doing the absolute most. And so because he's doing the most, he's on my top list of suspects, right? He then told them he was conducting his own investigation and claimed to have broken into 14 vacant homes with luminol, quote, looking for a crime scene. Sir, what? What? So you're just kicking down doors and spraying luminol everywhere and, wow, is there blood? What? Well, that answers my question why he ain't on the force, because he's a freaking moron. Well, I figured that out a long time ago, but I'm just saying. One of the homes he told them that he had broken into was Corey's, and he said that he'd found evidence that he could not discuss. My question is, why is this dude so obsessed with Corey? Did Corey turn you down for a date? Why are you so obsessed with Corey? Wesley also claimed that he had gotten video from his neighbor's surveillance that showed that on March 2nd, AJ was, quote, driving back from Rite Aid or 7-Eleven and being followed by a white car. So everybody was excited, like, cool, you have evidence. Did you give this evidence to the police? And Wesley said that he would not share the video with them until he felt that, quote, they were struggling enough, end quote. Like, what? Is this a case of a missing person or a pissing contest? I'm confused as to which one it is. You supposedly found evidence that nobody has seen before because the angle of the camera from your neighbor's house was the only one that could have seen this for some odd reason, and no other camera in the neighborhood saw this. But okay, you have this evidence of her coming back from the corner store and being followed by a white car, and you're doing this huge investigation to find your stepdaughter. But when it comes to a crucial piece of evidence, you're going to hold it back until the police are struggling enough. I really hope one of these neighbors nodded their head because, you got to keep up appearances. You don't tell the person you suspect that you suspect them. Please don't follow horror movies. Don't tell the person you suspect that you suspect them. So you just nod your head. Yes. When they're struggling enough, I agree. That's when you give it to them. And then when he leaves your house, as soon as he gets his last pinky toe out the door and you've closed the door, you call the police to report this. I really hope there was a neighbor out there that did this. On March 13th, Wesley had an idea. He should go and look for AJ's missing cell phone. So he put together a search party. He called Detective Shum and said that he had gotten a tip that the phone was in a field on I-64. Police asked him who gave him the tip, and he refused to tell them. Then my question is, why wouldn't the source have just called the police themselves? Are you putting your number out on the news or something? Because usually it's 1-800-TIP line or some crap like that. But the person called you and left you a tip, not the investigators? Okay. So they went out, and when the detective got there, he noticed that the news media was there too. What the frick? He also noticed that while everyone else, quote, spread out to search for the phone, Wesley, quote, went directly to a spot with tall grass and stayed in a 10 by 10 grid the entire time. Although no one found the phone, this was a very interesting meeting. Later, FBI Special Agent Joshua Hathaway found out that on March 5th, someone named Taylor Caraway had found AJ's cell phone. This person had absolutely no connection with the family whatsoever and was just a random person who found a random phone. Taylor told police that he had accidentally found this phone while searching for his own. At the time, he didn't even know the phone was AJ's because the phone was, quote, password protected, and he couldn't even get in to see who it belonged to. So he took it home in case he'd found out anyone was looking for it. And when he found out someone was looking for this phone, he handed the phone over to the police and also took them to the area where he found it. Now, guess which area that was? It was the same place Wesley had taken the search party to look for the phone. Curiouser and curiouser. Then on March 20th, Wesley told Andre that he'd gotten another tip. The tips are just flowing into his phone from an anonymous caller that there was suspicious clothing found on Battlefield Boulevard. You know, by this time, I'd be more shocked if he hadn't gotten another tip. Apparently, his number is more famous than, 911, and everybody trusts him to conduct an investigation over the actual investigators. So, I would truly be surprised if he didn't get another tip. So, Wesley took Andre and his friend, Colin Saunders, to the area. Andre later said that Wesley was driving, quote, erratically, but even so, he, quote, suddenly claimed to, quote, see clothes on the side of the road. So this guy who's driving erratic, side to side erratically, oh my God, look, there's clothes on the side of the road. Frickin' Superman. We have frickin' Superman here. When they stopped and searched the area, Andre and his friend found AJ's clothes, which were shorts, a knee brace, and her missing shoe. So Wesley, Superman Wesley, called police and reported this. Then on March 21st, police brought Wesley in for an interview. I could have seen this coming from miles away. Detective David Benjamin conducted the video-recorded interview. Detective Benjamin asked Wesley how he knew about the clothes. And he told the detective about a tip that came in on March 19th at about 5:02 p.m. from a, quote, telephone call from a blocked number. So, of course, Detective Benjamin was like, oh, that sounds reasonable. So, let me see your call history. But Wesley was like, oh, my bad. My absolute bad, sir. I deleted this one phone call to, quote, free up phone memory. How utterly convenient. Detectives did have something interesting to ask Wesley, though. The phone records on AJ's phone showed that her cell and his cell were both in the area of Wesley's hotel room, quote, on the afternoon of March 2nd and into the morning of March 3rd. Wesley immediately denied that he, quote, hurt or murdered AJ and claimed that he did not know where she was. Really? Really, sir? Because my question to you, sir, is who said anything about you hurting or murdering? Who said anything about hurt or murder? Nobody said that. As far as we know, AJ's just missing. And all I said was your phone was with hers. When Detective Benjamin left Wesley alone in the interview room, Wesley said to himself, quote, I'm screwed. Wesley was then arrested on unrelated charges, including possession of ammunition as a convicted felon and heroin possession. This arrest gave police the opportunity to focus their investigation on him. Hey, Wesley. This is how you conduct an investigation, sir. You thought you were smarter than the cops. You clearly aren't. At 6:00 p.m., police executed search warrants for Wesley's hotel room and work van. In the hotel room, they took his laptop and went through the browsing history. They saw that on March 11th at 9:42 p.m., Wesley had searched for maps of the intersection where AJ's cell phone was found. They also found that box of ammo he'd put in the vent because he thought he was so smart. And they found a sandwich bag that had about 0.0426 grams of heroin. Then they brought in the cadaver dog. The dog alerted police to a spot on the carpet beside the bed. In Wesley's work van, police found a GPS that was, quote, mounted on the dashboard. Wesley said he used it for work and that he'd interestingly had a job in Franklin, Virginia. The device showed no movement on March 2nd and limited activity on March 3rd, suggesting that it was either just stationary or turned off. On March 4th, the GPS tracked significant movement starting at 7:15 a.m. in Norfolk, stopping at a 7-Eleven in Suffolk at 7:25 a.m., followed by a Citgo station in Franklin, and ending at an abandoned house on Smith's Ferry Road near the border of North Carolina, and it stayed there between 12:14 p.m. to 12:26 p.m., which is approximately 20 minutes. A forensic search of Wesley's van revealed that there was a shovel with dirt residue inside, a pair of black work gloves covered in dirt, duct tape with dirt residue on it, and a hair scrunchie and a picture of AJ. So they have all of this stuff. They still don't have AJ. However, on April 9th, 2015, investigators found AJ's body in a watery drainage ditch behind that same abandoned house that I said that Wesley's car was stopped at for 20 minutes. This was about 40 miles away from her house. Her body was partially buried, covered by plywood, and showed signs of physical trauma. She was wearing the clothes Wesley had described, and her pants were pulled down, and her buttocks region was exposed. Assistant Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Wendy Gunther conducted AJ's autopsy. She said that AJ's body was badly decomposed when it arrived, and they had to use her dental records to positively identify her. She called the autopsy frustrating and difficult due to significant decomposition. Dr. Gunther said AJ died from acute heroin poisoning. Laboratory analysis detected a lethal concentration of heroin metabolites in AJ's chest cavity, including codeine, morphine, and 6-acetylmorphine. I think that's how you say it. The morphine level measured 0.63 milligrams per liter, which is triple the amount typically causing death. Meaning, this amount could have killed 3 people, basically. This would make for an assumption that she died from acute heroin poisoning. However, the ME conducted further testing. Hair follicle testing confirmed AJ had not used heroin or other illegal substances in the months before her death. So she just suddenly started using this level of drugs. She went from 0 to 2,845 miles per hour in under 0.6 seconds. Literally. It showed that she had not used in months before her death, which I'm just spitballing here. She probably had never used in her entire life. And the first time she used it, she gave herself supposedly enough to kill 3 people. Okay. The ME also said that AJ had several bruises on her body, including on her jaw, chest, and around her eyes. So what the ME documented was that there was traumatic injury to her neck muscles, quote, typical of inflicted asphyxia. There were control injuries on her neck, chest, right wrist, and left arm. There was bruising consistent with someone kneeling on her chest, and she had 2 black eyes indicating, quote, unspecified criminal violence. Dr. Gunther concluded these injuries were inconsistent with suicide because, did she give herself 2 black eyes, kneel on her own chest, hold down her neck, right wrist, and left arm, and then strangled herself? So the doctor said these injuries were inconsistent with suicide and suggested that AJ was held down and forced to ingest the heroin. Due to the extensive decomposition, they couldn't make certain determinations. For instance, they couldn't test for signs of sexual activity. Now, with all of this evidence, AJ's death was officially ruled a homicide. With the entire investigation and evidence mounting, in 2018, Wesley was formally charged with the first-degree murder of AJ and the concealment of a dead body. Again, double O moron over here. I could have seen that coming a mile away. His trial started in October 2021 and started with initial setbacks when the judge declared a mistrial due to disagreements between defense and prosecution over admissible evidence. Because remember, all of this is circumstantial evidence. They really haven't found actual physical evidence linking Wesley to AJ's murder. So after resolving these issues, the prosecution presented their case focusing on first-degree murder and concealment charges only. Prosecutors alleged that Wesley had abducted AJ, poisoned her with heroin, and dumped her body to avoid detection. His GPS and phone records placed him at the location where AJ's body was found. Actually, the location matched precisely with the GPS coordinates from Wesley's work van. Remember, that's what even led them to the house in the first place, if you remember. And surveillance footage showed him purchasing fuel at a nearby gas station shortly after the GPS indicated his presence at the abandoned property. Witnesses testified about his erratic and incriminating behavior during the search, and forensic evidence linked him to the crime scene. Prosecutors highlighted Wesley's attempt to interfere with the investigation, including planting evidence and lying to the police. Deputy Commonwealth Attorney Tony Colvin emphasized Wesley's, quote, deliberate and calculated moves throughout the crime and investigation. The prosecution highlighted his history of criminal behavior dating to the late 1990s, arguing that he, quote, cannot be rehabilitated. Wesley's defense, because, there has to be a defense, argued that AJ's death was accidental, claiming that she had taken the heroin voluntarily or that she had overdosed on her prescription headache medication because she was depressed over a recent breakup. So, what you do when you're depressed is you punch yourself in the face, giving yourself 2 black eyes. You somehow hold your knee down on your chest, giving you a bruise of somebody holding you down. You then hold your own arms, hold your left arm and your right arm somehow, and then you strangle yourself. And then when all of that is done, you kill yourself with heroin, with the amount of heroin that could kill a person 3 times over, literally could kill 3 people. But somehow you manage to stay awake long enough to give yourself that entire dose that could kill a rhino, basically. Literally, I keep saying that because I guess however heroin is taken, let's just say a syringe. I have no idea, but let's just say a syringe. What the police are saying is, by the time a third of the solution of the syringe had gotten into her body, she should have been dead. But somehow she stayed alive long enough to pump more and more. And the defense is going along with it. I mean, maybe she gave herself the heroin. And if it wasn't the heroin, maybe she just overdosed on the headache medication. Because she was depressed over a breakup. Sir, she was with somebody else. She was going out to do other stuff. What are you talking about? Defense attorney James Ellenson presented evidence suggesting AJ might have been suicidal, showing a slideshow titled, quote, "Suicide is my father," that AJ allegedly posted the day before her death. The defense also focused on AJ's antidepressant medication history and text messages with an ex-boyfriend. Now, like I said before, this theory didn't explain a bunch of stuff. In addition to it, didn't explain how she ended up in a ditch. So, what are you talking about? AJ's college roommate testified that she'd never seen AJ use drugs and said AJ was focused on college and she barely even partied. The prosecution also introduced Wesley's cell phone records, which established that there was no records of any calls that came in from any tips. They also presented the surveillance video and still photographs, which showed that both AJ and Wesley's phone had been in the same location throughout the afternoon of March 2nd. Detective Benjamin testified that their phones hit nearby towers multiple times that day. They also presented the records from the alarm company establishing that Wesley's service was canceled in February of 2015 for non-payment. Remember, he'd said that around 1:30 p.m. on March 2nd, he'd received an alarm notification on his cell phone and that he thought it was just AJ coming home. And remember when police asked him for evidence, he said, "Oh, wait, my phone had reset itself. And come to think of it, I canceled the alarm on the 2nd. Yeah, well, that was easy to debunk. At trial, Andre Barr testified that he went to Corey's house to confirm that the jacket was there because he had previously threatened him that anyone who had disputed whether he had found AJ's jacket would, quote, be dealt with. Then the neighbor, Teresa Thomas, remember her? Well, she testified that she was there with the search party on March 13th and saw a reporter interview Wesley. According to her testimony, Wesley, quote, cried and cried and cried during the interview, but, quote, as soon as the camera shut off, Wesley was laughing and giggling and proud. Marilyn Wells, remember, Wesley's friend, testified at trial that during the first week after AJ's disappearance, Wesley asked her to rent a truck for him under her name so that he could do his own, quote, investigation. Wesley offered to repay her in cash because he did not want to create a, quote, paper trail. Why is this, Wesley? Why? If you're doing an investigation, you're not doing anything. Well, I guess he was breaking into houses, but he was boasting about doing all of that. So why didn't you need to leave a paper trail? So Marilyn went to a car rental company with Wesley, but he abandoned the plan because the company did not have any trucks or SUVs in stock. And for you to do this investigation, why did you specifically need a truck or an SUV, Wesley? Also, why couldn't you have just used your own car? Wesley's supervisor reported him returning from lunch an hour late on March 2nd, claiming that he had met AJ at a gas station to give her money. Co-worker Julia Smith testified that Wesley appeared, quote, fine until receiving a text message from AJ, after which he became, quote, upset. A former drug dealer, dude, they are bringing out everyone. I don't blame them. A former drug dealer confirmed selling heroin to Wesley for about $800 the day after AJ's disappearance. Phone records showed Wesley attempted to contact this dealer 30 or 40 times between March 2nd evening and March 3rd morning. Jennifer Wright, AJ's mother, testified that her daughter never used drugs. Didn't I tell y'all she never used this in her life? Her friends are saying it. Her mom's saying it. I mean, like, you could even say, like, maybe this is what parents are going to say because kids are going to hide it. But her friend said it too. And she said her daughter maintained an active lifestyle at her university. Jennifer noted suspicious text messages she'd received from AJ's phone the night of March 2nd, stating that they didn't, quote, seem like her daughter. And the messages arrived simultaneously with texts from Wesley's phone. So basically, he was texting her as messages from AJ was coming through. I guess this was his idea of covering his tracks. When confronted with all of this evidence, Wesley's defense shifted. His attorney argued that there was no direct evidence linking his client to the murder. And that was the defense. You can't say that, Your Honor. It's all circumstantial. I rest my case. I mean, I guess there isn't any direct evidence, like, Wesley taking a picture or holding up the heroin with a thumbs up and a newspaper showing the date. But I mean, this is all pretty damning circumstantial evidence, including his action after she disappeared. So, in closing statements, the prosecution said, quote, Wesley Hadsell manipulated the police around him. He wanted to control every narrative, and when he couldn't, he turned to violence. Wesley's defense closed saying that AJ's death was accidental claiming that, I said it before and I'll say it again, she took that lethal dose of heroin voluntarily. On February 7th, 2022, after deliberating for several hours, the jury reached a verdict. What do you think they found him, lambs? They found Wesley guilty of first-degree murder and concealment of a dead body. The judge noted the evidence was, quote, overwhelming. Like, dude, you thought you were trying. I'm not even. You heard everything already that I had to say about this moron. This was just the weirdest. On Monday, April 4th, 2022, Wesley was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 15 more years for the concealment charge. So, screw you, sir. During sentencing, the judge rejected Wesley's final statement. This dude actually tried to give a freaking final statement. Sir, we've been hearing way too much from you. We don't want to hear from you anymore. And the judge said he did not, quote, accept one word from Wesley and called him, quote, a danger to the community. He called Wesley's actions, quote, deliberate and calculated, emphasizing the harm that he had caused not only to AJ, but to her grieving family. This dude is, and I know people use this term freely, but I really mean it. This dude is a textbook narcissist. Oh my God. He could not stop listening to himself, and he thought he was smarter than the people who do this for a living. AJ's death devastated, of course, her family. Jennifer described her as, quote, a bright light that was extinguished far too soon. A scholarship fund was established in her name to support young women pursuing higher education. Quote, nothing will bring AJ back, but we hope her story can help others see the importance of standing up for justice. And that is the case of the murder of AJ Hadsell. What did y'all think about that? This was the craziest, the most zany, oh my God. And it's only because of Wesley. This dude, I don't even know what to say about how he tried to handle this case. I want to say I don't know what he was thinking, but I know what he was thinking. And he really thought he was getting away with it if it wasn't for those pesky kids. Like, this dude was the dumbest. Oh my God. Let me know what you think about this case in the comments below. Look, I can't wait to hear your comments about it. I cannot wait to hear your comments about this moron. Anyways, woo! That was a doozy. You cannot tell me it wasn't. That is all I have for you. Don't forget two things. Don't forget to leave me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to this on, because that will greatly help me. I don't know why I stopped asking for it, but I did. I'm going to ask for it in this episode. So don't forget to leave me a 5-star review if you like this episode, if you love the podcast. On whatever platform you're listening to it on, that will help me out greatly. And the second thing is, don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast for free on our Patreon. You do get some benefits for signing up for free, but you get even more benefits if you become a sponsor of Love and Murder. But either way, if you're not ready to become a sponsor, sign up for free on the Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a lamb. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for going through this entire crazy episode with me. Cannot even imagine. And as we end each full episode, which if you didn't know, because you're new here, our full episodes are on Mondays. And then we have mini episodes on Wednesdays and Fridays. But as we end each full episode, say it with me now. It's all love and no murder, y'all. Thanks for joining me. Bye.